Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the Sports 2.0 show. My name is Ryan Ghodsian. I'm here with my partner, Aaron Yadgaroff. How are you doing today, Aaron?
Doing well. Had a nice weekend. Pretty busy. Had a graduation party with one of my friends. Lost my car keys for a bit, but we're all good now. How was your weekend?
That sounds like a pretty eventful weekend. Losing your car keys, that means you're doing something right. Um, I was with my friends and family few events. So my cousin's bar mitzvah, so that was a lot of fun. And
Nice.
went out with my friends Saturday night, and it was with my family Sunday. So it was pretty great weekend. Super busy, but it was a lot of fun. So just
Yeah.
can't wait to get into our show today. We're going to be talking about the NFL training camp. Some teams have started late last week, but most teams are starting today actually. And we're going to run through some storylines about the biggest storylines heading into training camp. So I think the biggest one, and I'm sure everyone knows this already, is Aaron Rodgers and recently Devontae Adams. So as everyone knows, Aaron Rodgers has requested a trade and does not want to be with the Packers anymore. The Packers even offered him an extension on his contract that would have made him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, but he declined it. And recently, there's been some rumors that Devontae Adams has had some rift with the team, and obviously, I don't think it's a coincidence that this has come out ever since Aaron Rodgers didn't want to be on the team. Devontae Adams has come to his defense many times so far in the offseason. And yeah, Packers fans were worried once Aaron Rodgers requested a trade. Now Devontae Adams, he hasn't requested it yet, but doesn't look like the two sides are on the same page. They try to talk about an extension, but it hasn't happened yet. And I don't know if you guys picked this up, but Rodgers and Adams both put a pretty cryptic tweet on their story
Yep.
with the last dance with Jordan and Pippen. So could that mean that that was their last time being together on the field? Who knows? But it was definitely something for fans to think about. What do you have to say about this, Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to mention that on their Instagram. They both posted their story about the last dance, but like a lot of people were saying like it's not as impactful as the Jordan Pippen because they Rogers won one Super Bowl and Devontae's won none. So like it's not even that big. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers MVP of the season last year, and Devontae Adams the best receiver in the NFL last year. So like I guess there is a type of Jordan Pippen connection, but obviously not as impactful. I think this situation is been way too long, and I think the Packers have been mistreating Rodgers throughout the whole situation. We don't know the story that much in the background, but Rodgers asking for a trade, I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago almost now, and still hasn't gone nowhere. They offered him a contract to make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, as you mentioned, and he declined it, obviously. There's not many teams that are fully on looking for a quarterback right now. It's really just the Broncos and Texans, it seems like. Maybe the Raiders also. But I don't see him getting traded, to be honest at all. I think he'll be playing in Green Bay one more year and just be leaving as a free agent next year, maybe to a new team. I would have seen him going back to California, but none of those teams really need a quarterback. With the Niners drafting Lance and then Herbert and Stafford, obviously, are doing great. So there's a lot of question marks in Rodgers' future, but you could see we'll see what's happening with that.
The Packers, people forget the Packers have made the NFC Championship game in the past 2 seasons. But obviously, if Rodgers is gone and Devontae Adams is gone, they can go from one of the best teams in the NFC to one of the worst very
Yep.
quickly. And yes, they do have a lot of talent around the roster, but um, you, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in the NFL. So if they lose both of those guys, it won't be pretty. So yeah, I mean Matt LaFleur has a lot of things to take care of during training camp. His players are probably very distracted about what's going on. But as a leader, he has to steer the ship and make sure his guys are on the same page, which is very difficult to do when you don't know who your starter is going into the season, and you don't know if Devontae Adams even wants to be there anymore. So a lot of work for Matt LaFleur. He has, like I said, he has had 2 13-3 seasons and has made back-to-back NFC Championship games. So as a coach, at least on the field, he's done great things. But I think this training camp specifically is going to be his biggest challenge. So we'll see what he does there.
Yeah.
Transitioning to the next topic, we're going to be talking about the new COVID rules that the NFL laid out. Would you like to explain that, Aaron?
Yeah, so recently with the new 18-game schedule, the NFL wanted to release more information about the COVID rules. If a game is canceled or postponed because a club cannot play due to COVID spike among or resulting from its non-vaccinated players or staff, then the burden of the cancellation or delay will fall on the club experiencing the COVID infection. They will seek to minimize the burden on the opposing club or clubs. If a club cannot play due to a COVID spike in vaccinated individuals, we will attempt to minimize the competitive and economic burden on both participating teams. So if a team does have a player with COVID, the game will be forfeited by that team. So that's very crazy. And also, there'll be less paying. The players will not be getting paid as much. So the NFL is definitely trying to make sure people are getting vaccinated and being able to play every game. Obviously, there are some players against getting vaccinated. We've seen Cole Beasley, we've seen DeAndre Hopkins, we've seen Jalen Ramsey on Twitter. So, what are your thoughts on this situation?
I'm definitely not surprised by what the NFL has done. I mean, you look at their past, nothing has stopped them from, halting the season. Like you look at the NBA, like they had a hiatus and then they went to the bubble. The NFL was just business as usual. Yes, like most of the season there weren't fans, but they started on time, they ended on time. Yes, they had to postpone some games. But if you look at it, they started the season on time, they finished the season on time. So I'm not surprised about these regulations. They're just trying to defend their brand. I think obviously this has to do with money. If players are unwilling to get vaccinated, then games will be forfeited. And if games will be forfeited, there's going to be less games on to televise. That being said, the players won't be getting paid. None of them. It doesn't matter if you were vaccinated or unvaccinated. If the game gets forfeited because of COVID, if you're on the other opposing team and you weren't part of the spike, and you were vaccinated, you're still going to lose your game check. So they're starting this kind of not argument, but like a rift between vaccinated and unvaccinated players. Obviously, they're not quote unquote requiring it, but they're saying if you get COVID and there starts a spike, you're gonna have to forfeit the game. So not only will you lose the game, you're gonna lose your game check. And I'm sure the players that are vaccinated are gonna be very upset because they're not gonna be making their money because of someone that got COVID that's not vaccinated. But what's interesting is they didn't. I mean, they didn't mention this, but let's say you are vaccinated and there is a spike within the team. Would you forfeit the game or would you lose your game check? I mean, that's a little interesting. I mean, obviously the side effects of getting COVID when you're unvaccinated are probably a lot worse than when you are
Much
vaccinated.
worse, yeah.
But I mean, COVID is COVID. So I mean, I don't suspect them to play the game if there's a COVID spike. So how is that going to work? It was just interesting to think of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, sort of mentioning what you said about for vaccinated players or staff who do test positive, obviously they're going to be not showing symptoms at all because of the vaccine. It doesn't. The vaccines. I don't want to get political here. It's not always 100%. Some players and coaches will still get it. Like Frank Reich just reported this morning has COVID, even though he got the vaccine but has no symptoms. But for the people who test positive and are asymptomatic, they can return to duty after 2 negative tests that are 24 hours apart. So that is definitely much better. For the ones that are not vaccinated, they have to do the 2020 protocols, which is a 10-day isolation period. So that's much, much different from that. I think we're going to be done with this conversation so we don't get too political. And we're going to talk about one of the biggest stories throughout the whole since the season's ended, and that's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's had been requesting a trade from the Texans for a while now, and then the huge rumors about all of the I don't even want to get into that much about all the stuff he's done with women. We'll say back in throughout his time in Houston. So, what are your thoughts on just all this Deshaun Watson stuff, and do you think he'll maybe get traded?
Uh, I don't think the Texans have much of a choice. Yes, he's a great talent. He's a good quarterback, but he has so much baggage right now, and the Texans already look like a pretty bad franchise, especially after Bill O'Brien decided to trade
Yep.
their best player to the
Yep.
Cardinals and got back virtually nothing. Um, and yes, like I said, Deshaun Watson's a great player. I think it's more likely for him to get cut than traded, because
I agree.
if a team trades for him, they're gonna look very bad in the public eye that they just traded for a guy that has so many legal issues right now.
22 allegations in total.
Exactly. So, I mean, the teams that do need a quarterback, like you were saying, like if these allegations weren't at the table, obviously, I think there'd be a lot of suitors, whether a team needs a quarterback or not. But um, because of everything that's going on, it's gonna look extremely bad for a team to trade for him, which is why I think the Texans are probably gonna cut him. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Tom Pelissero on NFL Network, he said the Texans are probably going to be looking for at least 3 first-round picks and more for Deshaun Watson if they trade. I don't think any NFL team will be willing to trade that much value for quarterback with all these allegations that we just mentioned and lawsuits that are coming up, which are over 20, like we mentioned. So I don't see many teams that are looking for this. I could have seen the Raiders maybe going for a few not too long ago, or maybe the Eagles even trade Jalen Hurts and only need to give away 1 first-round pick or 2 potentially. But I don't see any team really going for this trade now. So I don't know if he'll get cut, but I think he'll realize that no team's going to give him the chance. And now the Texans are listening to offers since this morning. We've been reported that it's not going to look great for the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think. I mean, even if they wanted to play him, I don't even think he can play. I mean, because he's odds are he's probably going to get suspended, if not for amount of games the whole season. So, in kind of a lose-lose situation for the Texans and Watson. So, we'll see what happens. Transitioning to the next topic, we're going to be talking about some teams to keep an eye on in training camp. I know, Aaron, you're a big Jets fan. You want to talk about the Jets?
we'll bring that up a little later, but I'm very excited for the Jets season. I'm going to actually talk about a division rival, and that's the Miami Dolphins. I think that team is very, very coachable. They had double-digit wins last year, 10 wins last year, and people were not really sure about them. I think the biggest story for them in training camp and going into preseason will be Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback. He needs to show that he is a franchise quarterback and that a team like the Dolphins do not need to trade for a great quarterback such as Deshaun Watson, which they were rumored for before the whole situation of the sexual allegations, we'll say. So I think that's going to be a big situation. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not there. He started 7 games last season, and Chan Gailey, I'm pretty sure, is not there anymore, who is a big supporter of Ryan Fitzpatrick. So Brian Flores needs to make sure he doesn't bench Tua at all throughout the season like he did last time, removing him for late game situations and stuff like that. And need to make sure Tua is the quarterback of the future for them. And if he's not, then that's just going to be a big thing for the Miami Dolphins. They got a great pick in Jalen Waddle, who is Tua's ex-receiver. And they also got Jalen Phillips also in that first round. So they got a great edge rusher and a great receiver. I'm excited to see how this Miami Dolphins team will look this season. Hopefully, as a Jets fan, they'll look terrible, but we'll see. I think it'll be a big season for them just because of Tua.
I agree. The Dolphins, they surprised some teams last year. Brian Flores has shown to be a pretty good coach. Like I said, the biggest story is Tua. How well will he perform? Last year, he showed some flashes, but he also struggled a lot. So we'll see how he does in the preseason. A team that I want to keep an eye on is a team that we actually already talked about. It's the Packers. Like I said, Matt LaFleur really has to rally his guys. I know Rodgers is not there, and Devontae Adams is causing a little bit of a ruckus. But they still have some talented players. Aaron Jones is a great running back. They have some guys on the defensive end. Preston Smith, Zendarius Smith. They got Jair Alexander in the secondary. So they're, like I said, they have a lot of talent on the roster. But obviously quarterback and wide receiver are the two most important positions, especially on offense. So if Matt LaFleur can't really rally his guys, like I said, I see them going from one of the best teams in the NFC to one of the worst.
Wow.
So this is probably going to be one of the most difficult coaching jobs, I think, in recent memory, in my opinion. So like I said, I kind of think this takes this whole like Aaron Rodgers rift and Devontae Adams situation kind of takes a pressure off Matt LaFleur, especially if they don't play, because then, many people won't expect much from the team. So if he does well, then it'll make him look really good. But let's say they do decide to show up, I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on him, because then it'll be kind of like his quote unquote like last chance to get him back and impress him. So like I said, if they don't return, I see them being a much worse team. But with that being said, there's going to be a lot less pressure on LaFleur. If they do return, there's going to be tons of pressure. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, speaking about LaFleur, we're going to go now talk about the Jets. Matt LaFleur and his brother is now the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets, Mike LaFleur, and his best man of his wedding is now the head coach of the Jets, and Rob Saleh. So we're going to talk about which head coach will have the most impactful training camp. And as a Jets fan, and just in general, I think Rob Saleh will be the best coach for this overall. Rob Saleh, coming from the San Francisco 49ers as the defensive coordinator, one of the biggest he has one of the biggest names out there throughout the summer, or even I guess we've hired him in the spring even. So he was a huge name out there, and I'm really excited to see it. He has a lot of new pieces in offense with a new starting quarterback in Zach Wilson, second pick out of BYU. He's got a great young receiver in Elijah Moore coming from Ole Miss, and A.J. Brown, who's a top 10 receiver in NFL now, says is better than him. We got there's Corey Davis, who they got signing from the Titans in the offseason, so new wide receiver one. Denzel Mims will be healthy the full season. Michael Carter, who somehow dropped to the fourth round, will be a starting running back. They got Tevin Coleman, who's going to be a good backup running back too. So the Jets have a lot of new pieces in offense with Morgan Moses also, and Elijah Vera Tucker setting up the O-line with already arguably one of the best players in last year's draft in Mekhi Becton. So the Jets on offense are looking much better, and with the addition of Rob Saleh as the defensive guy, bringing in players like Carl Lawson, who had one of the highest quarterback hits, not the highest in sacks, but playing for a very bad Cincinnati Bengals team, will have a much better time at the New York Jets. And then getting Vinny Curry, getting LaMarcus Joyner, and Jared Davis. Those are huge signings. Also, Sheldon Rankins is a great defensive tackle. And Quinnen Williams, who was arguably the best player in his draft, that dropped to 3 when the Jets took him, is probably going to have a breakout year if he can stay healthy.
Those are all great points there. I'm not very high on the Jets, but I do like Rob Saleh. So we'll see what he does with them. I think the defense will be improved. I just worry about their offense, but we'll see.
I'm more worried about the cornerbacks actually than offense. I'm very high on our offense right now. We're very young. I don't know if this year will be our great year, but next year I expect the Jets offense to be one of the top 10 in the NFL.
Bold claim. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Brandon Staley. He was the defensive coordinator for the Rams last year. One of the best defenses in the NFL. Yes, he did have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on his team, but then again, his scheme was great for them. They caused a lot of problems. They beat the Seahawks in the wild card round, and they advanced. And yes, they did lose to the Packers, but they had Jared Goff as their quarterback. We're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford a little later on in the show. But I think, going to the Chargers, I think he's going to improve their team a lot. You think about how many close games they lost last year with Anthony Lynn as their coach. I think that's when you lose close games, especially when you're in it and you just fold under pressure, I think it has a lot to do with coaching. And I think Brandon Staley will be able to calm his guys down. You look at their defense, Derwin James is coming back. Joey Bosa's on their team. Yeah. They have some talented pieces. People forget, Derwin James was one of the best safeties in the NFL, and he's still very young. So I see him having a big impact coming back. You look at their offense. Obviously, Justin Herbert's been a star in his rookie year, and I think he's only going to improve. Keenan Allen's obviously one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. They got Austin Eckler, who was a very underrated back, in my opinion. They got a good offensive line. I just see them winning, with a 17-game schedule. I see them winning about 8 or 9 games, which may end up stinking them into the playoffs. So look out for the Chargers. I think Brandon Staley is going to make a pretty big impact on their team.
I could see more wins 8 or 9. Justin Herbert looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He was insane numbers when he took the starting job over Tyrod Taylor. So I'm a very big fan of the Chargers team, and if you check their wins and losses from last season, they lost so many games in the fourth quarter, and that is why Anthony Lynn was fired. So if they could keep that up, I could see them winning many more games with a healthy Mike Williams and a healthy Keenan Allen on offense. Obviously, Hunter Henry is not with the team anymore, but their offense is still very good. Eckler was also injured last season, so they had a lot of injuries last year too.
Exactly.
So I'm very high on the Chargers.
The only reason I didn't pick more than 8 or 9 games, I was trying to be a little more conservative about it.
Yep, I understand that.
There's always a risk for a sophomore slump with a quarterback and a new head coach coming in. So
yeah, I
definitely think they're going to improve. It could sneak into the last spot in the playoffs in the AFC. But yeah, they easily could win 10 or 11. We'll see. I just know that Brandon Staley did wonders when he was on the Rams. And I think he's going to improve that defense a lot, which will keep them in games. And I think Justin Herbert will end up winning them down the stretch.
I'm totally with that.
Talking about new additions, we're going to be focusing now on players. Which new addition will make the biggest impact on their team, Aaron?
Matthew Stafford, 100% to me. Matthew Stafford is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Has played with a terrible Detroit Lions team throughout his career. Has only had one Pro Bowler on his offense. Now is Calvin Johnson, and that team wasn't able to do much. But Matthew Stafford is a very, very great quarterback in this NFL. I'm very excited to see him play for the Los Angeles Rams in the hardest division in the NFL. I do end up seeing the Rams winning this division, as I've mentioned on multiple Sports 2.0 shows. I think they have the best overall offense and defense. They have who I think the best player in the NFL is on defense, and Aaron Donald. But we're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford right here. I think Matthew Stafford is so underrated. His career stats are incredible. He needs to start winning some more playoff games to potentially get into the Hall of Fame, which I think he will. He's had one of the best QBRs always in the NFL, has led the league in passing yards multiple times throughout his career. So I'm very, very excited for this man to be on a good team with some great receivers like Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods on his team. So, yeah. Obviously, the running back situation is not there right now with Cam Akers going down to the torn ACL, but torn Achilles. Yep, sorry, my bad. I think the Rams have always used not the best running backs on their team, and they got to the Super Bowl with not the best running backs. I think it was C.J. Anderson who was their best running back during that run, and he was probably known as the 25th best running back in the NFL. So we'll see if Darrell Henderson can have a good year this year, or Malcolm Brown, I think, is still on the team. Not fully sure about that, but yeah, I think the Rams are definitely going to be a team to watch, and the impact Matthew Stafford will have on this team will be very, very big.
Yeah, it was obviously he's one of the biggest additions for sure. We'll see how well he does. I think the one thing that may hold him back is that they're expecting a lot of him, especially as many Rams fans are looking at Matthew Stafford as a quote unquote savior kind of, because they had to deal with Jared Goff for all these years. But he's only known one team his whole entire career in the Lions. Yes, he's struggled. Yes, he's been on some bad teams. But it may take him a year for him to get used to Sean McVay's offense and the way he leads his guys. So we'll see. I like Matthew Stafford. I think he's a great quarterback. But I'm kind of pumping the brakes a little bit because I'm not sure how quickly he's going to be able to fit into the Rams offense. My pick is someone that used to be talked about all the time in the NFL, but for some reason, because I guess he's gotten a little older, he's kind of been casted in the shadow. But JJ Watt is my pick. Even from just a leadership perspective, I think the Arizona Cardinals very needed that badly. They have a very talented team. Yes, Kyler Murray is one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. Yes, in my opinion, DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Um, but especially on the defense side of the ball, they have so many young guys in Buda Baker, Isaiah Simmons. Um, they need some leadership on that team. And I think JJ Watt's going to provide that. And let's not get it twisted. He can still have a very impactful season on the field in terms of sacks, um, quarterback hits, tackle for losses, forced fumbles. So I don't think enough people are talking about this addition, especially in the NFC West. You need, some guys who are going to set the tone on defense. The Rams having Aaron Donald, the Niners having a Nick Bosa. You look at the Rams. Sorry, you look at the Seahawks. Bobby Wagner is their guy to, as an enforcer. So I think JJ Watt will be that guy who will set the tone for the Cardinals, which is something that I really think they needed. So it was a big signing, in my opinion. Trade. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think I think that's a great one. JJ Watt, two-time defensive MVP, I think it is on defense. So he's a very, very important player in the NFL, future Hall of Famer, big player who's going to be for the Arizona Cardinals. There's also players like Julio Jones, we didn't mention, who's now with the Tennessee Titans. Carson Wentz, who's on the Colts. So some big players that will be on new teams that we'll see if it will have huge impacts on the team. Even rookies, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, they are new additions to the team. Obviously, they don't have the experience that players like Carson Wentz and Matthew Stafford. I have Carson Wentz not that much experience as a quarterback, but yeah. I think what you got something to say?
No, I was just gonna say, now that we talked about the new additions, I'm gonna bring up who will end up being the biggest loss in so far this season going into training camp. What do you think, Aaron?
There's a lot of teams that have no big losses. I'm gonna talk about Drew Brees with this, like obviously retired quarterback. He's not with the Saints anymore. I don't know if the Saints will be as good as they will be. They have the Super Bowl champions in their division. Drew Brees, arguably a top two quarterback, top three, four, five quarterback of all time, is not with the Saints anymore. He is retired. They now have two quarterbacks that are fighting for the job in Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, who's known for throwing more interceptions and touchdowns in his career. So I think that would be the biggest loss for any team in general, losing one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and now having to start a quarterback that has not much experience or a quarterback that has a little experience but has not really had much success, even though he's had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as receivers.
That's a pretty good pick. I'm gonna kind of just anticipate a loss. I know this hasn't happened yet, but obviously, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, it's gonna be the biggest loss. He just won the MVP. He's led his team to two NFC championships. He's been the face of the franchise since 2005 when he was drafted. Obviously, all-world quarterback. So if he ends up leaving, I think Aaron Rodgers takes this question away pretty far-fetched. But if I had to go with someone that is actually gone, I'd probably have to say it's a good question. Honestly, I'm going to go with the coach. I'm going to say Robert Saleh. I'm a little upset that he's gone. He's leaving the team. He's instilled kind of a culture on the defense where guys really want to play for him and played very hard. And he's a defensive coordinator that doesn't blitz much, but when he does, it's from various angles. He sends some safeties, corners. He does a lot of stunts that not many defensive coordinators think of. But like I said, I think even more so the scheme. I just think they're going to miss his presence, his energy. Guys love playing for him. So I think that's going to be a pretty big loss.
I am with you on that. I love to hear that. As a Jets fan, coming from a 49ers fan too. So, yeah, I think that's all we got for the show today, though. So, if you guys are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button on the Sports 2.0 show on YouTube. Drop a follow on the Twitch. Drop a like on Facebook and all of that great stuff. Thank you so much for watching the show, and we will see you guys later.